everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland Retrospective here on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network. And this is my weekly show where my guest and I each pick a film related in some shape or form, and hopefully by the end of this episode, you have two films to go check out. And joining me is our fearless leader here at the SPDM Crew. It is Mike Hilty.
Fearless leader. I'm never going to get over that. Hello. How's it going?
I'm going to buy you a monocle.
As long
Straight
as you
out of
buy
Rocky
me,
and Bullwinkle.
as long as you buy me a top hat as well, or a cane of some type, I think I'll be good.
That is not exactly the outfit that Fearless Leader wears in Rocky and Bullwinkle.
I
And
know.
is it slightly fascist and Nazi-esque? Yes.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna leave it at the monocle.
Fair enough.
Except you'd fit right in here in America in 2025. But I'll leave that at that.
God,
So,
what are we
but
doing?
I don't know, but we're not here to talk about that. We're
No,
here
we're
to
going
talk about
far away from America and going far, far away.
yes, goodbye America, goodbye Hollywood, hello Bollywood. And yes, we are doing an interesting double feature here because Mike picked 2008 Best Picture winner Slumdog Millionaire from notable acclaimed white director Danny Boyle. And we are going to be talking about the film that influenced Danny Boyle to make this movie, which is Deewaar. So, what is a 3 hour long Bollywood film?
I was not expecting that when I asked you today about what's the movie I should be watching, and
I
yeah,
did
that
think
was
about
quite.
that. I'm like, Mike has 5 hours of movies to watch today.
Well, I've seen Slumdog Millionaire recently, so it's all good.
Okay.
But the other one, yeah, that was tough, and it's not like I can watch that while I'm driving or anything like that. You got to pay attention to that one.
Yes, for sure. And you have to do some creative searching on the internet to find one with English subtitles
Mhm.
because I had to look quite a bit. I don't know if it's technically pirating, but I did find one website that had it, and it's just casually there.
Eh,
So
yeah, all good.
all good. But let's start by talking about the Best Picture winner, Slumdog Millionaire. The year that In Bruges and The Dark Knight existed, except neither of them got any attention at Oscars for Best Picture. But
No.
we have a teenager from the slums of Mumbai becomes a contestant on the show on Benega Korapati, aka Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? When interrogated under suspicion of cheating, revisits his past, revealing how he had all the answers. Before we get into how this was a very interesting framing device, and I completely forgot about it since I hadn't watched this movie in years. Mike, what's your experience with Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
The shtick kind of wore off for me after a while, and it really lost its luster when it became very clear that Regis just stopped caring as well.
And then they replaced Regis. So
Ex-
then
but
my grandmom and I watched a lot of Millionaire
nice.
because I grew up in a household with my grandparents. So grandmom and I watched Millionaire a lot, and I had the board game.
Hmm. It like for me also it lost a little bit of luster the first time somebody won $1 million as well. And because you're just waiting then for for somebody to win $1 million, but then when it actually happens, it's like, oh, and not only that, the way he went about doing it as well. Like you can't get cooler than that, where he saves his phone a friend. I think his name was John Carpenter as well. He saves his phone a friend and he calls his dad, is like, oh, hey dad, how's it going? I just wanted to call and let you know I won $1 million. I know the answer already. Like you,
Old.
that that is such a brilliant way to do that. And yeah,
Pardon my
it,
language, but that man whipped his dick out right
yes,
on
he
national television
absolutely he did.
and plopped his balls right in a wheelbarrow like that episode of South Park. and just wheeled them across the stage right in front of Regis Philbin. No, which I thought this was such an interesting idea. I think the storytelling is fascinating that you have a frame narrative here where you have our protagonist, Jamal, on Millionaire, but then we cut to him being interrogated by acclaimed actor and rest in peace, Irfan Khan, as it's like, you cheated. Well, let me tell you strategically how I knew all these answers and all the history that went into them. And this is how we get all of Jamal's backstory, which I think is a clever framing device because this is very unique. And I don't think many films would work, but Danny Boyle certainly made this one work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I now, anytime that I pull something out my butt during trivia when I used to play, I call it, I slumdogged it because that was like, I don't, sometimes you just know, like, you know the answer to something just based on something that you experienced in your life. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, hey, if anybody has any questions or anything that they want to know about the Three Musketeers movie, the one that Disney did, I got most of those answers because it happened around the time that my parents got divorced. So
Oh no.
that's seared into my head pretty good. So
I have that seared in my head because I watched that movie way too many times. You know, Kiefer Sutherland, Charlie Sheen, Oliver Platt as Porthos, and you know, Tim Curry as
Tim
Cardinal
Curry.
Richelieu,
Can't forget about Tim Curry, but
and Chris O'Donnell. At peak
D'Artagnan.
in the
Yeah.
90s, they tried to make Chris O'Donnell happen.
Mhm.
And just who was the trio that made the song? It was Sting, Brian
Brian
Adams.
Adams and Rod Stewart.
Oh my god.
That
Oh my god.
you can't get any more early 90s than a Brian
No.
Adams song, with Sting and
Sting
Rod
and Rod
Stewart.
Stewart. Oh man. And I just love like that whole Three Musketeers question because I started like I've seen that one. I've seen the 70s one with Oliver Reed, Richard Chamberlain, Frank Finley, and Charlton Heston as Cardinal Richelieu. And just wild. Rochefort was Christopher Lee. But you have this, and like that moment is so great too, because when he calls Latika to phone a friend and she can't help him, but it didn't matter because this wasn't about him winning the money. It
It was
was
about
about
getting in touch with her.
finding,
Yeah,
and he
that's
did
all
it,
it was.
and he's just like a real boss. It's just like, I'm gonna guess the obvious answer, which is A.
Hmm. Yeah.
Just like, I guess I'm gonna start with my answer, but I wanted to ask what your most memorable of his flashbacks is. And it's hard not to pick him as a small child swimming through shit
Yeah.
to go get an autograph from the star of Deewaar.
Yeah. um.
I was eating dinner.
Oh God. Yeah, that
And I'm
was.
just sitting there, I'm like,
That's right.
I could smell this movie. I could
Hmm.
smell this movie right now.
Yeah.
Were there any other ones that stood out to you?
Um. I think. I think one that stood out to me is just the whole thing with the kids that are the kids that are singing for that guy, and then some of them get blind just so that they can panhandle and like raise money or just get money. So that one always kind of stood out to me because that just anything that has to do with eyes just makes me cringe.
Mm-hmm.
um but the other thing too is that anything just with the youngest of the young kids, um, mainly because you hear the stories about how like all of those kids, they didn't get like a whole lot of money for this, or they're still
Mhm.
not living in the best conditions. Um, I don't know. It just anytime I saw anything like that, it just reminds me of the fact that like most of these kids or most of the people that were in this that wasn't like a famous performer is still living in the slums, and that sucks.
And this movie made $378 million worldwide on a $15 million budget.
Yeah,
15.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
That'll do it, right?
which can we talk about the soon to be glow up that is Dev Patel at the moment of this this movie? Because he has big ears, he's a little goofy looking, but
Scrawny. He's
he's
scrawny as
scrawny.
hell. Yeah.
And then like by the time the Green Knight rolls around, and he's just like an absolute like knockout beefcake. And he's just like, oh my god, Dev Patel.
It's the facial hair, Shane. The facial hair just does him all the favors
Mhm.
that you need facial hair to do. My facial hair, thank God that this is an audio podcast. My facial hair is hideous. So when but then again also we'll be recording on YouTube soon enough. So there is that, but
I
it
had one
like
of my students who hadn't seen me in 2 weeks because of spring break, and her first question was, how did I grow a beard in 2 weeks?
that's just the way it works, you know? That's just plain and simple with that. But yeah, this is the first thing that I'd seen Dave Patel and or Dev Patel in, and I I found it interesting that number one, he's not from India or anything like that. He's just Indian descent, and not
Mhm.
only that, he had never acted in anything Bollywood related. So everything that he did, like at the end with the dancing, like
Mhm.
he just went for it. He just was a natural, and to me when I watched Slumdog Millionaire, I thought, man, I hope this guy's going to be famous one day, but I think he's just going to be on the fringes instead. I think he's going to be someone that's going to make strategic choices when it comes to the movies he makes. And I think film nerds are going to love him. The mainstream is going to have no idea who this guy is. And I think that's pretty much what has happened to him.
Well, he did pick the last airbender. He was Prince Zuko when they decided to make the whole Fire Nation Indian
Yep. Yep.
instead of Chinese.
Yep.
Uh,
That
but
was a choice, you know?
like I think Dev Patel, like basically Dev Patel's just been doing Wes Anderson movies, Monkey Man, and The Green Knight for the past like 5 years.
Mhm.
And he had like the personal history of David Copperfield. I really love the work he's doing, but to be fair, yeah, a lot of it's much more low key. But I do really love him in this. He's so endearing. Frida Pinto, who love her. Um, the last like movie she was in was Mr. Malcolm's List that came out a couple years ago, and then she's in the second season of Surface, that Apple show that I have no idea why it has a second season. I was so confused when I saw that it had a second season.
I'm very confused about that, and I reviewed the first season for Sif Pop, and that was the only article that I got pushback on Twitter when someone was like, "Dude, this guy got it dead wrong." I was like, "Thank you. You read the article. I appreciate you. I didn't get it wrong, but that's fine."
Did you like it or not like
No, I thought it was fine. I thought Gugu Mbatha-Raw was great because she's great in everything, and the story just kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and everybody else is
it? It makes
trying way
even
too
less
hard.
sense now that there's a second season.
Yeah.
But anyway, this film has a lot of flair. It has a lot of personality. It it feels like a Danny Boyle movie. Like you could tell like this was Danny Boyle, had his fingerprints all over it.
Mhm.
I do which like the whole entire very Bollywood sequence is literally in the credits.
Yep.
But like that's a lot of fun. I do enjoy that quite a bit. And this doesn't shy away from some of the darker elements and like what happens with what's his brother's name? Uh but like it gets like really dark. Like dealing with uh having like Latika basically being um sold off to this like piece of crap guy,
Mhm.
and it's just like just trying to get her away, and like that whole entire train station sequence where she did show up but then she got kidnapped
Yeah.
and brought back. It's just this film is interesting because it does balance like some heavy stuff and then putting in a lot of emotion but also like fun.
Mhm. This love story. So his brother's name is Salim.
Yes.
Like just I don't know why I forgot that as well, but that's just what happens, I guess, when the amount of content that we watch. But the so the the love story between Jamal and Latika is just really it's one of those that it feels like it's just one for the ages. And I love like you mentioned the bookmark, the or just the vantage point of how all of this is
Mhm.
set during, you know, with the guise of like who wants to be a millionaire. I love the bookmark at the end where they ask the question, like how did all of this happen? And the answer is it was written. And that's something that is just a throughput throughout this whole thing is that, the reason why all of this happened is that they were meant to be together. And I really like that. I love the music in this as well.
Yep.
The the song Jai Ho is one that I love. Not the
Mhm.
Pussycat Dolls version, mind you, which I don't mind. I don't mind it, but not as good as the one by A.R. Rahman.
Mhm.
Just great.
This film has a lot of style.
Mhm.
It has beautiful colors, it has a richness to look to it. And it's so interesting because it has like a gritty, visceral look to it too. Very reminiscent of like 28 Days Later and stuff
Mhm.
like that. It's just, you know, less zombies. But like this captures like the slums and everything in a very visceral kind of way. And, you know, I feel like this film gets a bad rap for like softening too much stuff, but like I like sure, but like I don't think this takes light, like makes things too light when it comes to the issues that it's dealing with. It just, at the core of it, this is about a love story.
Mhm.
And these two young people brought back together because of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And it's just I just find this one of the most unique and strange uh concepts for a movie, and it just really comes together, and it can get very frustrating from a writing standpoint of just like what else could they possibly do to Jamal or Latika and everybody. And at the end of the day, love prevails, brings
Mhm.
them together,
It
and it just
does. Well, not only that, but just you even see the ups and downs with Salim and Jamal
Mhm.
as well, because Salim has burned him so many different times. And Jamal's working at a call center and he calls somebody and Salim answers, and that's how they connect. It's just like a chance encounter. But it's very interesting because when you suggested the second movie that we were going to watch, it's like, oh, I see where the parallels come in now. Okay, this
Mhm.
this makes sense about two brothers
It's about brothers.
who move in just two very different directions. And it's it's interesting to see some of the parallels and just some of the issues that come up because it's it's a lot of nature versus nurture, a lot of one person is strong enough to resist a life, like an easier life with more money, but you have to be a criminal versus, the other side where you have to do everything on the straight and narrow all the
Mhm.
time. It's so interesting. Yeah, and even with Jamal and Salim, it's the same thing. You empathize a little bit with Salim with some of the decisions he's had to make, but also you remember, man, you were a jerk to Jamal a lot, like when he was
Mhm.
younger. So I kind of have to hate you. But then what happens at the end, that was nice. That's something that a brother would do, no matter what.
Absolutely. Well, I don't tend to be the kind of person to give up a great segue. So,
Mhm.
thinking about, yes, this is a story about brothers. And so is the second film that we're going to talk about, which is Deewaar, which is from 1975. And this is from director Yash Chopra and focuses on Vijay struggles as a dock worker and eventually becomes a leading figure of the underworld, while his younger brother Ravi is an educated, upright policeman. This divide causes problems in their relationship. I feel like there's a lot more to this.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit to fill out this 2 hour and 54-minute film. But Chopra's film is an action, epic, gangster, tragedy, crime, drama, thriller, music. Bull? Question.
Maybe.
It's Bollywood, so it has music in it. But Mike, what were your general thoughts on Deewaar?
So I have not seen a lot of Bollywood movies, particularly older Bollywood movies.
Mhm.
That is a bit of a blind spot for me. So watching this, I I don't know what I was expecting, but this,
Was
you
not
know,
this, was it?
no, like to me, this kind of reminds me a little bit of a bar in New York that Stefan would recommend. This movie has everything, but
Everything.
but one thing that I just kind of harp on uh with really liking is, boy, this is very anti-establishment. And in a day and age right now when like who the establishment is not being very friendly to people right now, this kind of felt like music to my ears a little bit about how just everybody thinks that the establishment is corrupt. Like there's scenes where as a cop, Ravi just doesn't he's not really he tries his best to do the right thing, but he messes up and
Mm.
then people just are like, "Oh, you're just part of the problem." And everything like that, which sucks because I'm sure everybody who is in a position to potentially help people probably gets stuff like that all the time. So it's interesting to see that and just how these two brothers, they took wildly different paths
Mhm.
in their lives, and you kind of empathize a little bit with VJ with what happened to him, especially since, boy, talk about getting screwed over by your dad at a very
Mm.
young age
Well,
and even unintentionally as well.
the opening sequence of this movie sets up so much from a narrative, a character, an emotional, and style
Mhm.
perspective because you have this whole thing where their father is sent in as a representative for like this union and is blackmailed into conceding
Yep.
because they threaten his family.
Yep.
And that sequence, the editing and the camera work, those quick cut in succession with the push shots and like really close into people's faces as they react to everything, the energy
Yeah.
that is in the filmmaking and the directing of Chopper here, it's infectious.
Yeah.
Just the editing and the personality, the voice that's behind the filmmaking. But then, like, their father is like swarmed by all these union workers. Um, your child gets tattooed.
Oh yeah. That was. That was rough.
Like this, like what was it, the son of a
Son of a thief or something
thief or
like that.
something like that, and like that sets this whole entire thing up for a movie that's full of musical numbers, which have a lot of energy, great dancing, and just an interesting bit of personality and style too. And then the action, that one scene with VJ, dude was throwing flying head scissors at it everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And straight up murking, what was a shovel?
Yeah,
Was just straight up murking everybody with. The action in this is so
it's
perfectly
really great.
choreographed,
Yeah.
and it's just so exciting with so much energy. Now, this movie is way too long
It is way too long. That's true.
and scattered and drawn out. And like narratively, I don't know, like there's plenty of things they could have leaned out here. Thematically, I think it's very rich. You have the emotion. I think it has some good performances
Mhm.
from Amitabh uh, Bachchan and Shashi Kapoor, who
Mhm.
play VJ and Ravi. I think like they have to anchor down this like 3 hour movie together.
Yes, yes, they do.
And it's a very interesting parallel, like you mentioned. And I think that's some of the most interesting elements of the film is just their journey across from each other. And just there's like anti-government, anti-capitalist, just like all of these things. This is a very rebellious film and
Hmm.
has a serious edge to it. And this is a 50-year-old film.
Yeah.
And just there's so much personality in it. This is a wild ride and makes me want to watch more Bollywood. I think my only experience, like I they show a lot of Indian films in New Jersey at
Mm.
AMC's because there's a lot of Indian population here. And I remember seeing Gully Boy,
Mm.
which is about a young man who wants to be a rapper. And I remember loving that, but that was also like a 2.5 hour movie. So I think just in general, when it comes to Bollywood films, that also had Aaliyah Bhatt in that, who's extremely famous
Hmm.
Indian actress. But just this made me want to go check out a bunch more Bollywood. I think the only time I ever watched Bollywood stuff was in seventh grade when my social studies teacher, when we were learning about India, showed us some Bollywood, and it was wild.
Hmm.
Just the singing, the dancing, the fantastical elements to it. It's crazy.
I'm in a similar boat as you that I do want to try to check out more Bollywood movies because I mean it's it's pretty well regarded as, one of those. Is anything going to beat out Hollywood? No, but at the same time, there's plenty of places that are coming pretty close to it, and I don't know. This if I could watch more movies that are just as like you said thematically rich and
Mm,
from a performance standpoint because a lot of this hinges on relationships and just making
mhm,
sure that if nothing is ever really as it seems. There's always nuance to things, and just the end gutted me, even though
mhm.
it's part of the gig. Unfortunately, that doesn't change the fact that it hurts and it sucks that you have to do that. But them the rules of being in your chosen path, whatever it may be. So it is what it is.
Well, this film was about a cop and a member of the criminal underworld. So it's like there's a lot of danger in that.
Hmm.
And two very interesting conflicting paths that these two brothers were on and brought them together in a very interesting and fruitful kind of way cinematically for sure.
Hmm.
But this was indeed an interesting double feature that we had here for this week with Slumdog Millionaire and the film that inspired it with Deewaar. But Mike, thank you as always for coming on and talking movies with me.
Oh, thank you, Shane. I appreciate you as always for everything that you do on the SPDM crew. So says the
Captain, my
boss.
captain.
Oh, my captain, my captain. So I appreciate you. Just always love getting a chance to talk movies with you, and this was definitely an interesting one. So appreciate it.
And if the criminal underworld and slums of India were not depressing enough for you, next month we're going to do a double dose of films about the Holocaust. We're going to be doing Schindler's List and Life is Beautiful.
Thanks,
But
Rowan. This is all your fault, Rowan.
our buddy Rowan. Next week I'll be joined by Luke, where we do Barking Dogs Never Bite, and the host, a double dose of Bong Joon-ho. Which also has some very dark stuff in it, but not quite Holocaust dark.
Mm,
So I still think that Mike's next episode takes the cake.
probably. Yeah.
But thank you all for listening. Like, comment, and share on this episode. What's your favorite? So here's an interesting question. What's a film that you love made by, like British people or American directors that just try to really capture the beauty of another culture?
Mm,
Or have you dabbled in Bollywood? What are some of your recommendations so Mike and I can add them to our very obviously lengthy watch lists?
mhm.
And make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast, because the SPDM Crew podcasting network is ever expanding to the point where I don't even know if I can listen to all the episodes every week, but I try my best. But we have so many great shows hitting on all different kinds of elements of pop culture and such. And make sure, if you're interested in joining as a guest, or do you have an idea for your own podcast, make sure to reach out to our fearless leader, Mike. And if you like our logo, check out HiFlyer Creative for all your digital marketing needs. But most importantly, thank you as always for tuning in and supporting the Wasteland Retrospective here on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network.